when you do communicate with your friends back home, do they have much hope in Donald Trump? Do they have hope that Zelensky will finally step down? Because I mean, he's out basically said, I'm going to be president, into perpetuity because there's no elections. So is there any talk about that? Do they have hope that something will change?
Yeah, Zelensky starting May 20th, 2024, is not a legitimate president by the Constitution of Ukraine. That's it. Period. It's not Russian
Well,
propaganda. It's the law,
well,
Ukrainian law.
he claims that he declared martial law, right? So therefore, under martial law, there can't be an election. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
By the martial law, only the parliament can prolong its term, but it has to prolong it with an act within the parliament and a vote. By the
Oh.
Constitution of Ukraine, Article 110, the president cannot prolong his stay in power more than 4 years. So it is written in the constitution, which was thrown away in Ukraine because the constitution of Ukraine also protects Article 10 of the constitution of Ukraine protects the Russian language in Ukraine, which is also being destroyed today. So a lot protects religious freedoms, especially right now with the closing of the churches and the Kiev regime taking over the churches of the Ukrainian Patriarch Church to basically destroy our religion. So they just threw away the Constitution. America is closing its eyes on this, and that's it. So I don't know what Trump is going to do, but should not talk to Zelensky. He's not a legitimate president. He should just give him an order to get out of Ukraine also because he's one of those puppets who agreed to fight this war. He knew that this war is going to happen. I'm talking about Zelensky, and he's fighting it today, destroying Ukraine, even though a lot of Ukrainians want it to stop. And what you're asking is, do Ukrainians want to stop this war? Yes. Do Ukrainians have hope on Trump? Yes, they do. They saw that there's some blink of light in this dark, dark world that can at least talking about peace from the West, from across the ocean, the people who are able to stop it, who are able to stop the financing of this regime, financing of this war, can just do it like this really fast. I said, get out of all those intel agencies, get those legionnaires out of Ukraine, stop financing the Kiev regime, and let the Ukrainians decide what they really want. And then we will see what government will come to power. We will see, will there be elections? We will see a different change, and Ukraine starting to go to the path of peace. Because today's Kiev illegitimate regime under Zelensky is talking about war. We see anybody who's talking about peace in Eastern Europe, Orban, Fico, Zelensky is attacking them. They're going after any of those people who go to Russia to talk about peace. What is this? What world are we living in that a legitimate president is basically threatening the Western world to go anybody who's talking about peace? Because this is what he did to Ukraine. I was one of those people who had to flee Ukraine and was put on a kill list because I was talking about peace the last 4-5 years. Even before this war started, I begged on every TV station that I was on not to start this war because Ukraine is going to lose. Ukraine lost already. I can tell you that it's lost because the war already started. Ukraine doesn't have it has an army only of people. Basically, I'm sorry to say it's meat, which is being thrown to the front lines and being used to stay in power for one more day, one more night, for Zelensky to make more money and make more money for his owners in Washington. That is the biggest problem today, which has to end. And Trump and his surrounding needs to understand this. That he can negotiate. I know he's going to negotiate from the American side. He's going to try to get something out of this for the United States. But the longer he negotiates this process, the more people are going to die in Ukraine. And mostly those are going to be Ukrainian military, which don't want to fight also. The people who are being thrown today in the front lines, they don't want to fight. They're plumbers, they're beekeepers, they're farmers. They're being just taken out of the street without any training, sent to the front lines without any equipment, not even getting paid. The soldiers who fought, that started to fight this war at the beginning, they're all dead. The ones who will be trained by NATO for the last 8-10 years, starting from 2014, they're all dead. So can you imagine the trained soldiers for 8 years are dead? What's going to happen to the plumber without no training, without any equipment, sent to the front lines? Ukraine doesn't have satellites. Ukraine doesn't have ballistics. Ukraine doesn't have submarines. Ukraine doesn't have a fleet. It has the only army it has used old weapons from the West. Men on the ground in Ukraine, which are now the Zelensky regime is trying to lower the age of of the military from 25 to 18, and now they're not even letting out the 16 years old out of the country. So they will be basically thrown to the front lines. This is what Hitler Germany did in 1945 before its collapse, sending Hitler Jugend, the youngsters from 13 to 18 years old, to fight against the Red Army, which was going into Berlin, and they lost because those kids cannot fight. This is what's happening in Ukraine, and this is unfortunately being supported by the warmongers in Washington and people like that who are trying to intervene in the post-Soviet countries. Because Soviet Union, they have to understand, made a move once in 1989. Remember the fall of the Berlin Wall? That was the move from the Soviet Union to get its soldiers out of Eastern Berlin, Eastern Germany, unite Germany, and that was the biggest, basically, move in the 20th century of peace. And the agreement was that the West will not, and NATO will not move an inch into the eastward. But they did not fulfill the promise. The United States moved eastward, NATO moved eastward, and now it's on the Russian borders. And they made my country not a prosperous country the last 10 years, but they made it anti-Russia, a hateful country, a terrorist country, which is now being used to make terrorist acts against Russians and any other ones, any other one in the world. They're working their way around in Syria and Africa just to make more money for its own regime. And this is what Ukraine has become.